in different details.
Hello and welcome to the Ubele initiative, the emergency business conversation today. Today we're going to be talking to some owners and directors and senior managers in BAME businesses to look at how coronavirus has impacted on them and their work in the past 3 months. Is it 3 months since lockdown? It feels like 10 years. I'm not quite sure. How long is it, Yvonne?
It's about 8 weeks. So
it's about 8 weeks since lockdown. Oh, okay. We're going to have 2 panels tonight. In our first panel, we're going to have some business owners. And in the second panel, we're going to have some people who run social enterprises. And they're kind of some special businesses that use all of their profit to put back into kind of social causes. But we're going to start with Yvonne and I from Ubele. Hello, Yvonne.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I can see there's 114 people with us.
Are there 114 people watching us?
Well, there's 116 now.
Oh, wow. Are you nervous? Are you nervous? Are you nervous?
Yes, I'm nervous. Thanks.
Okay, good. Good. So why an emergency business conversation? We had the emergency conversation a couple of weeks ago. Why an emergency business conversation? Why does Ubele think this was an important thing to do?
Okay, well, we're a social enterprise. So we were set up in 2014. And the way that we generate the income for us running our operations is kind of mixed. It's a mixed bag. We decided we wouldn't be a charity, but that we would trade. So we get our income from a mixture of grants as well as commission services, consultancy, management fees. So us, like many businesses up and down the country, when COVID-19 hit, it was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? Because all of our contracts slowed down. Mm-hmm. We had to, furlough staff. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag here, but I'm saying it anyway. And we had to rethink our business model in order to survive. So it feels like we have, we needed to bring that conversation into the public domain. And that, this is a time to talk about what's really going on and what do we need in order to, to kind of maintain the businesses and to grow, hopefully, coming out of this.
And are there things that, we're going to find out some more later on from our speakers, from our panelists, but do you think that there are kind of things which are peculiar to the Black community, to the BAME community at this moment in time, that we have to be kind of exploring as a community in relation to our business?
I think there's been a historical structural issue for BAME-led businesses, and that's about access to finance. We've not been able to access loans and even some of the social business grants to actually support us, to grow the business, to innovate, to do development. So that's been a sort of long story. I've been in business since the 1990s, so I know that was a story back then. And I think in this new sort of era that we're in, and particularly now that we've got COVID-19, I think that the issue about, you know, what's the government offering to small businesses and SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprise, if you've got a business under 250 people, sorry, not 250,000, 250 people, you're an SME, and that's actually 99% of the businesses. So I think there's a big issue about understanding what is on offer and available in terms of cash as well as support. That's been a big issue, and that's been an issue there, you know, for a long time.
And we're going to be dealing with that kind of quite near the end of the programme, aren't we, when we're going to be looking with Power to Change at the resources that there are to kind of support Black businesses at this time, the grants that people can be getting hold of, the money that's out there that we should be able to get. So we are going to be doing some of that. Have the Black community ourselves been coming together to kind of make things happen? I'm kind of thinking back to things like the Partner Scheme. I know that kind of in the kind of 60s, 70s, Black people who are wanting to buy houses, who are wanting to start things, who are wanting to make things happen, kind of generated money through kind of pooling money within the community. Is there much of that going on? Should much of that be going on? Should we be relying on government finance, or should we be relying on the money that is there in our community at this time? Are we spending enough on each other?
I think, you know, whether you call it partner, as in Jamaica, or box, as in Barbados, or susu, as in, you know, East Africa, or commissioner, as in some parts of South Asia, you're talking about this whole collective contribution to a scheme where somebody acts as a banker, that's trusted, and then somebody kind of gives that money to people within the system week by week or month by month. And in fact, what I've noticed, I was on the tube about 6 months ago, and I noticed on the adverts at the tube, there was a sort of advert for pooled savings, you know, like and I thought, wow, this is Partner 2020 style. I think there is a real need for our communities and the young people in particular to kind of embrace those schemes and systems, because they served us well. They allowed us to buy housing, to actually to set up businesses, and they're still really vibrant in some parts of communities. They can be really quite large sums of money that actually in a pooled savings scheme. So I think this is, you know, one of the areas we need to explore. We need to help young people to understand how to do that partner system, because it, you know, as I said, it served us well in the past.
Thanks very much. Anything you want to kind of say finally before we hear from our first panelists, from our first guests?
I just want to say that, you know, this is a really hard time for BAME businesses. You know, I mean, you know, you don't go into business lightly. You don't go into business faint-heartedly. It's really hard to grow a business. It's not for those people who want a 9-to-5 job. You have to be 24/7 on it. And I would just sort of recommend that, you know, people ask for support, you know, that you actually take advantage of what there is, but also ask your colleagues who are running business what you should be doing. Speak to your bank manager if they're friendly. If you have to furlough staff, you have to furlough staff, if it means that you can come back in 3 months' time. So I'd say, you know, we need to talk to each other, not be proud, not to feel that we're failing, but actually to kind of look for support that's available and to share support that you've received so that others can also learn.
Thanks very much, Yvonne. One of the things that I'm kind of really keen to draw out, particularly with this first panel, is that the way that people have come to business, I've kind of done a little bit of reading, and the way that people have come to business and have come to be running their own businesses are so different that there's kind of no one size fits all, that the way that it's happened for everybody seems to be really different. And that's one of the things that kind of really excites me about the idea of people being entrepreneurs. It's something about bringing who and what you are to the table to kind of to create a wage for yourself and to create a wage for other people. So thanks very, very much. One of the people actually that started doing that really, really young, and I'm always surprised when I hear about these stories of people that kind of they're starting businesses almost before they get out of their pushchairs, was on, and she's going to tell me how to say her name because she's told me 900 times and I'm still going to get it wrong. So come, say hello to me. Thank you very much, Yvonne Field.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's Onyinye, you're almost there.
I am.
Onyinye,
I'm not sure what's happening. I'm not sure what's happening because my panel 1 has come up, and that means that everybody in the panel is going to join us in a second. And that's Matt Kemble, Philip Udeh, David Frederick, and yourself. But before we go there, just tell me about your story. You were telling me that you started running your business when you were
12. So
wow.
I started what is now Enrich Learning when I was 12 years old. I was really fortunate. I won a scholarship to a school called Christ's Hospital. And so it's a boarding school in West Sussex. So I had really long summer holidays and I wanted money. And I was very aware of the fact that even with the scholarship, my mum and dad were paying significant amount of school fees. So I didn't feel comfortable asking them for more money. So I said to my mum, if you let me teach your friends' kids, obviously for a £5 because I never wanted to work for free, then let's see how this works. And I started teaching one-on-one. Then I realized, okay, I can teach 2 or 3 people at a time. I was making 30, 40 pounds in a day. And as a 12-year-old, that's like being a millionaire. I could go to Cineworld, I could go to Primark and come back with bags full of rubbish that I was never going to use. And it kept me busy. And so I did it throughout secondary school and I got to university and I said, right, I'm actually going to do this properly. So I attended King's College London and I would come home on a Friday evening and tutor up to 50 kids sometimes over the weekend. I was going across London doing it. And then I ended up studying in Beijing at Tsinghua University, which is their very best university. And I studied online education. And when I was there, I noticed they did all their education and tuition online, came back to the UK, built what is now the Enrich Learning website myself, said on LinkedIn, hey, who wants to be a tutor? And here we have it. I mean, I've employed some more staff during this COVID-19 time. So it's been very unique for me. Despite having coronavirus, my business has grown massively. And I'll get into that a bit more later on in this discussion. But that's how I started the business. I started at 12 and now I have an entire kind of mini empire. I'm 21 now and it's absolutely incredible. It's a lot of hard work. I did it alongside my studies. So whilst I was at King's, I was the first ever student of the year there as well. I'm doing my master's now at the same time, full-time in education policy.
I'm going to have to stop you. And the only reason I'm going to have to stop you is because I'd like to hear kind of from Philip, who has recently been on TV, who has recently done the Dragon's Den. Tell me, how did your Brain Food is your company, isn't it, Philip?
Yeah, Brain Food Limited. Although now our product is called Food Vitamin Energy. And yeah, we were recently on the telly on Dragon's Den pitching our brand. And you know, I won't spoil it for you. You can still see it on season 17, episode 11 on the iPlayer. But yeah, it was good. We got really good exposure. And I started this brand because I have sickle cell, and sickle cell is the red blood cell disorder. For me, you know, I'm generally very lucky with my health, but chronic fatigue is something that I really struggled with. And you know, making my little smoothie at home with like ginseng in it and different vitamins and stuff, I thought, you know what, there's nothing like this out there. And yeah, that's kind of how the journey began. You can find us at Brain Food, which is FUD.
Okay, and have you always been an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I
Philip,
mean,
have you always been starting things and making things happen? And
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that they played the clip when I told the story of going to school in Tottenham and selling cookies. So I'd buy like the 3-pack of Maryland cookies, 99 pence, and then sell them for 50p each and then make 50p profit. So Onyinye, I wasn't as profitable as you were, but you know, those days were like £5 a week dinner money. So it was a win for me to end up with £2 at the end of the week extra. But yeah, I mean,
I was reading. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, yeah.
Yeah, no, I was reading something recently. Where this boy actually got excluded from school because he did exactly that. I remember thinking, why would they exclude him for doing that? You know, it just seemed to be crazy.
No,
Yeah,
it's
seemed
just
to be
ridiculous.
crazy.
I mean, if someone did that on a university campus, it would be celebrated, but then at school, it's not. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But it shows the type of mentality of, you know, some of the teachers in the system.
And it might also be at which school, you know, because at some schools where they think that they are growing entrepreneurs, they are growing business people, they are growing people to run things, to organize things, to manage things, they're going to encourage that. But if they think that they actually, in the schools that a lot of us end up in, are not training young people to be that, you know, then of course you get in trouble if you step over the line, if you try to be somebody else. But there you are, Mr. Frederick. How are you?
I'm great. I'm wonderful.
You're great. And you how long have you run a business, David? You've run a business for an awful long time, haven't you?
June the 19th will be our 25th birthday, our silver jubilees, I think they call it, isn't it? In running Marcus Bishop Associates. But before that, I've been what we call side hustles before that. My first endeavors outside of the selling sweets at school was back in the days of 1982, for those of you who are alive then, those days before PCs. I was selling on a university campus, I remember it quite clearly, the whole range of Lois jeans. And whilst I'm now an accountant, I wish I was an accountant then, because it was May, summer term, and I had every range of Lois jeans possible. I had a great supply in Sheffield, and it was wonderful. How many did I sell that day? Not one. Not one. Yeah. So there I was, entrepreneur from West London, not one sale. So I had to rejig my market and take my goods back to London in the summer and try to sell there as well too. And afterwards, also, I've been involved in food importation from the Caribbean and Africa as well too, because I had an interest in food, and I still find it fascinating how we spend our pounds in the community or outside the community as well too. But I fell into accountancy by mistake back in '83, and I'm still trying to get out, but it's been good to me over the last X amount of years and take me globally and allow me to run a relatively nice little business for myself. So
okay, nice one. Matt, where are you? Matt, Mr. Marketable. Yeah, Matt. So tell us, how did Matt? I mentioned before we started the program, I happen to know that you kind of won all sorts of Badman awards, and you what were you, the European Young Entrepreneur of the Millennium or something?
I was one of the top 100 global young social entrepreneurs.
Wow, good. One of the top 100 global, not even British, but global young entrepreneurs. And what did that mean to you, Matt? How did you become that?
So when I think I've always enjoyed coming up with ideas. When I was at university, I started sponsoring a child in Honduras. It was like £15 a month. And I figured, yeah, I can do this. I've got like a 10K loan. I quickly realized, because I wasn't an accountant, I didn't have David, that I couldn't afford that. And so I had to cancel it. And then I had this idea, what if I got my friends to put in £1 a month each? We could sponsor a kid for £1. And I realized, wait, I've got more than 15 friends. So I created a student marketing campaign, and we ended up sponsoring dozens of children with World Vision. And that then led to a Channel 4 Ideas Factory Award. And whilst I'd been at university, I was studying chemistry, but what I realized I really enjoyed was coming up with brands and marketing. And so I pretty much realized then what I want to do with my life is use my skills around marketing to create ideas that move us.
Is it my camera or is it yours, Matt? Is anybody hearing me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sadly,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, where did he go?
Matt's frozen, I think.
Why have you gone on to, why have you come off what image?
Mm. While Matt is frozen, because the ether doesn't want us to hear the secrets of Matt quite yet, but Black business in particular, coronavirus in particular, how has coronavirus had an impact on your businesses over the past 10 weeks, I suppose? What's happening in terms of your business and coronavirus? Anybody?
Well, Onyinye, go ahead. What are you gonna-
Yeah, go.
Well, I've been really blessed. It's grown massively. So Enrich Learning is an online education platform. And so I had COVID-19, but before falling ill, I managed to build an online school myself with the skills that I kind of picked up at Tsinghua when I was studying there. And we've had so many students come online. We have e-products, so we've been helping parents with homework tasks, and I've also provided a marking service. We've started 2 new blog series, one called COVID-19, the evolution of education ? And we have some key policy writers who'll be writing on that. We've also had another series where students have been getting involved, actively volunteering their time to write about what we've called their life in lockdown. And then even more interestingly for me, I've actually just pitched to a leading tech venture capitalist firm. So coronavirus has actually helped me in the weirdest way possible. It's given me exposure. It's helped me have a wider reach. I've been able to assist students, and more importantly in this time, I've been able to educate parents, because I think it's all fine and good teaching the children, they need to know it, but the parents also need to learn how to manage their kids at home. So coronavirus has been a blessing in disguise. It's given me a boost, it's given Enrich Learning a boost.
You really were, this really is an example of somebody that was in the right place at the right time. You and Mr. Zoom.
Yes,
you and Mr. Zoom were absolutely in the right place at the right time. David, how has coronavirus affected Marcus Bishop?
Well, as we've heard, okay, for us, it's been also not adversely, as we've has seen rapid growth. So there's no surprise, because from week 1, when we were on lockdown, we were inundated with clients who needed help to stay alive, survive, and grow to the next strategy. So we've been providing clients with advisory services and trying to decipher, unravel, explain to clients also the plethora of HMRC and government schemes that's there for them. And also going behind the headlines. Headlines are great, but some of the schemes are some lovely small print, which only once you get involved, you see. The second benefit, the second strand for us, is that although we're chartered accountants, we specialize in probate and estate planning. And you've been following the news, you've heard there's been an uplift, an increase in demand for people wanting wills, because they're concerned. Wills and LPAs. For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been evangelizing to people about being prepared for uncertainty and certainty. Suddenly we've got lockdown and it goes ballistic. We've done more wills in the last 8 weeks than we have done in the last 3 years. And also on the sad side of it as well, to probate. There's been some people who've passed away, and we are there to help their family resolve their estate for them as well too. And the other area that's been quite interesting is I've become almost a cousin to Zoom. I'm on a webinar almost every other day talking about something or the other regarding property businesses, BAME businesses, estate planning, and so forth. So we've been fortunate in that respect. And one of the things that I think has cemented our position was back in 2015, we invested in digital platform. So we began to move away from the transfer of paper. And I've been telling clients now, paper is contagious. We don't accept things on paper anymore. It's got to be all be done on a platform. So clients who want to work with us have to work on a digital platform. And we were there in 2015, before GDPR and before making tax digital, because we could see what's happening. And the last few weeks has brought it home to us that it's been a great decision to move down that avenue, and it's been great for us in that respect. And although it's been great for us, I must say one thing: I'm most thankful for our position for two reasons. A, my team had so smoothly moved into working from home. Yeah, because without the team, there's no business. And also, thankfully, because I see the pain at the coalface. So I know how some people are really suffering. So that's the reason why, since lockdown or stay at home or COVID-19, we've engaged with some clients at no charge, because we're all in it together. And I'm quite conscious it's not a time now to be capitalizing on the pain of other people. That's too easy. And for me, that doesn't sit well with my ethos. So it's been great for us. We've understood other people, but for us, it's also about holding people's hands through these times, because the great thing I believe in is you want to make sure you're the one they remember when the dust settles and the fire goes out, because now's the time to demonstrate how you can help people across the road to the other side. So yeah.
Yeah, David, I just wonder, because having heard yourself, having heard the person who spoke before you, we'd kind of think, hey, business is really dancing. Yeah, people are really able to kind of dance into the new opportunities that are created through the kind of current madness. But you spoke about maybe the pain of some of your clients, and some of the real difficulties that some of your clients are having right now. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got clients, for example, in hospitality and the beauty business sector. And you imagine you start your business, you launch your business in a flurry in February 2020. Inside a month, you got to shut down. Yeah. We also got a young lady running a thriving beauty business. Suddenly, the doors had to be shut as well too, because no one wants to be touched or made beautiful in this day and age as well too. So there you are. What was a lovely business sailing along quite nicely, you suddenly find, oops, you have to dip into your reserves, and as time goes by, the reserves gets less and less, because it's called survival for you and the family. And that's when it really gets tough for people. I mean, there's one performing artist, for example, who had 3 income streams to his bow, and very early on, they all shut down. All we could offer him really was not much, but we cancelled his direct debit fees for 3 months to the future to see how we can help him survive as well too. So hospitality, performing artists, and lifestyle or beauty businesses, they're the ones we're seeing really going through difficult times, and they're the ones we're trying to touch base with on a regular basis to ensure that they're surviving. But also as well too, what you need to remember as well, it's not just a business side of COVID-19 or lockdown. The important thing as well is the mental side, how it's affecting people's state of well-being.
We're going to be looking at that in particular with the second panel, with some people who've building an amazing platform called the Auntie platform, where they're kind of looking at how you provide mental health services to support members of the BAME community at this time. And so we're going to be looking at that business and those kind of models after the break. Philip, Are you dancing?
We're dancing to a different tune. It's a bit slower tune, to be honest, than what we'd hoped. So, I mean, just for show and tell, this is our new product,
Hey.
which is like available from Amazon and our website at the moment. But we basically manufactured at the end of February, like 2 full truckloads of this product. This is about 175,000 cans of these. So you can imagine like how many like cans that is. That's about 62 pallets of products. So it's a lot of products, right? And we were excited about launching into universities because we've been selling a previous version of our product in universities. We had our product in about 110 Sainsbury's stores. So we were really excited about, this spring getting out there, selling into corporate offices as well. We used to sell to a lot of law firms and, bigger corporate offices like Google's offices, places like this. And then all of it kind of just has come to a standstill. And a lot of that distribution is just not available for us right now. And so we're really looking online. And actually, I guess it's kind of good and bad, but we had our Dragon's Den episode aired on the 22nd of March, and that was the Sunday before the lockdown. And so, basically we had a lot of visibility, a lot of, kind of positive engagement. So we had in March, about 40,000 people visited our website in the space of about that 1 week, pretty much straight after we were on the TV. But then it almost felt like we haven't really been able to get out there and capitalize on that visibility. Even to get press coverage off the back of it hasn't really been that forthcoming. So, but we've been doing well online, and online there are new trends based on like home workouts and like fitness people who are doing like digital classes on Instagram Live, and a lot of these influencers are, we have some level of these influencers working with us, enjoying our products, and then helping to share that with their audiences. So we're finding new ways to engage with our audiences.
I suppose that kind of what I'm hearing is that is that we have people on our panel for whom this situation was made. If I was an online teaching organization, or Mr. Zoom, of course, I would beg the Lord for coronavirus because it's going to really get my business going. But I understand in terms of BAME businesses more generally that a lot of BAME businesses are hand to mouth businesses, so they actually don't have any reserves and have never had any reserves, that there are a lot of small shops, small companies, small retail outlets who have just been told to close, who have just been left completely and totally without an income, and without really an ability to kind of do the dancing that I've heard from the people in this panel. I wonder what's going to happen. Yes,
Michael, I think I'd like to stress that I built this community that is now Enrich Learning over 10 years, and 8 of those years were face-to-face. So I didn't foresee coronavirus. I don't think any of us did, but I did foresee that we needed to go digital. And as a Black community, I think we need to teach each other to do that. And one thing I would say is what has propelled Enrich Learning in this time isn't the fact that I was at the right time, at the right place. Of course, that helped, but it's the fact that I already had WhatsApp group chats that I'm running free of charge, checking in with parents, seeing if there were any free resources. I already had a website where I've always been uploading free resources for parents, information, kind of decoding all the language that the Department of Education likes to use, and simply saying grade 9 means A double star, grade 8 means A, grade 8 means A, for example. And so from building that community, in a time of crisis, I become the trusted source that people want to go to. And so my advice to anyone who is listening to this is, yes, I've been very fortunate in terms of right place, right time. I give thanks to God for that. But the most important thing you can do now, and I've still sustained that, is to grow a community, maintain that community. Don't think so much about the money, about the revenue, about the profits. Think about the people. Like David said, there are people who are going to be going through a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. Think of what solutions you can provide to the problems that they have, so that, like Yvonne said, when the dust settles, they will remember you. I've picked up clients where I taught their kids 4 years ago. They remembered that I said, oh, I'm thinking of going online. And then they decided to come to Enrich Learning. A lot of the customers that I'm seeing now, they're not from Facebook ads. They're not from me pumping loads of money into general advertisement or using influencers. They're because I made them feel like they were part of a community. Community is so important in the time of a crisis. And I just want people to go away with that.
I would also build on that in terms of being willing to just support people where the need is. So we had one of our partners say, can we use your platform to build a well-being dashboard that churches can use with their congregations? So we spent 2 weeks building that for free. And we had some churches using it. But then I was then able to show that technology to a completely different client in a different space. Well, they weren't a client at this stage. It was a strategy consultancy. And I showed them what we'd done for the churches, and they were like, this is exactly what we need for another project. And that turned into a several £1,000 deal. And so I find that quite interesting in the sense of there's a degree of innovation that happens when you're trying to solve the problems in the moment that might lead you to develop sharper products that actually have additional revenue streams as we've experienced, which was a bit of a surprise, but it's definitely made me think, be even keener to take opportunities where you're maybe using what you do for free, tweaking what you're doing because you're solving a problem. And then that's a problem that could well be something that another type of client would pay for.
Are we supporting? I can hear when I listen to you, Matt. I can hear when I listen to all of the kind of panelists here. I can hear a tremendous amount of wisdom, a tremendous amount of experience, and I can see an amazing resource for our community. How are we using the kind of resource that is you? How were you able to kind of get hold of the resource that were people, Black people in business, BAME people in business, to support you, to finance you, to provide finance? How much of that is going on?
Quite a lot, Michael, I would say. And the key thing is, okay, it's about relationships. And you need to make a friend before you need a friend, whether it's in the BAME community or the finance community. Yeah, you don't wait till you need something to go and see somebody else, or as we used to say in the old days, go and harbour shark. Yeah, you got to build a relationship. Yeah, I'm very ordinary. Yeah, build a relationship. Okay, don't look and see what I can get out of it. As Matt says, what can I contribute? Because givers gain. Because building a business isn't about one person getting to the top. It's about the we, collaboration. Forget about the me. It's never about the me. It's about the we. What can we collaborate and build together? Yeah, and we are doing that. You mentioned about the partner, the susu and the box. Okay, well, we've gone beyond that nowadays, because down in Balham, this year is the 40th year of the Pentecostal Credit Union. Yeah, and they're still funding the community, the Windrush community, etc. They're there fighting a lone battle. The largest Black finance institution we have in the UK, hardly known at all outside of Balham and a few people, but they're there.
I've never heard of it. And I should have done.
And this is their 40th year. Yeah, Reverend Jones started it and so forth as a knockback from the community 40 odd years ago. Yeah, so it's really about not what I can win. Yeah, but ask yourselves in your interactions. Okay, how can you help? It's through helping. Okay, you leave your mark, you leave your DNA, you get exposure, and from that, guess what? people remember you because, oh yeah, that was a person who helped so-and-so in that time of need. Yeah, it's always about making a margin or quick turn. Yeah, because quick buck now, okay, will soon go. You want to leave a positive DNA in every community you enter, especially our community. Yeah, and that's what it's about. And also as well too, in these times, okay, of challenge times, times of doldrums, they're also times of opportunity. Yeah, look and see what the opportunity is, because the seeds of growth are always sown in the depths of the downtime. It's economics and it's reality. Yeah, prepare yourself for the new order. Yeah, as Onyinye said, we were ready, okay, for now, not because of now, but from 2015, looking at digital platforms before HMRC brought in MTD and before GDPR. It's about understanding, having that awareness, yeah, and interacting with people as well too, so you can grow. Together is what you want to do, yeah. Without the mass, you have nothing, yeah. So it's not about the me, it's about the we, yeah, and it's about making a friend before you need a friend, and thinking about what can I contribute to development rather than take out.
So I see that really clearly, David. I hear really very clearly and really very loudly what you're saying. Somebody said to me once, in fact, it was a vicar. I was working as a community worker in a church, and the vicar, he said to me, he said, "Michael, you're really lucky, you know." And then he came back to me the next day. He said, "You're not really lucky, Michael." I said, "Well, no, I am really lucky, actually." He said, "You're not." He said, "Because you know what luck is, Michael?" And I said, "What is it?" He says, "It's when preparation meets opportunity, you know, and that we have to, if we're prepared, yeah, that when the opportunity comes, we can pounce on it, we can make it happen, we can do things with it. And lots of people, we end up with lots of opportunities. I've had so many opportunities in my life where I've been so unprepared.
And also as well too, Michael, if you can't use it yourself, pass it on to someone who can.
Someone else who can use it. Yeah.
Pass it on. Don't slam the door shut. That's a waste. Be prepared to pass it on. Okay, it's like a relay. Yeah, it's a baton. I can't use it today, but maybe you can, or you can. Yeah, think the bigger picture rather than
on
yourself.
David's point, I think the Black community needs to realize that one blessing of coronavirus is that you can go global. So over the last couple of weeks, I've had conversations about taking Enrich Learning to Pakistan and to Malaysia. Those conversations happened in my bedroom in London. So think outside the box a little bit. If you've got a product and you realize, okay, it's not working in the UK, you don't have to fly there anymore. Well, you can't fly there anymore. We're on lockdown. The net has no borders, cross borders if you have to, because there is so much opportunity. Don't let COVID-19 make you forget to open your window of opportunity. That's what I've kept telling myself this whole time. We've got to try as a community to show each other where these other leads are, and maybe not think as small as we do. I think one thing this community does that we need to do is stretch ourselves a bit. I have got no idea, or had no idea anyway, of what online education was like in Pakistan or Malaysia. But I pounced on that opportunity anyway, because I was like, when I open that window, I will learn. So it's about having the confidence and having the boost. And if we create a warm community, I think people will be able to do that.
That's amazing. Thanks very much. Listen, before I let this panel go, because so much has come out of what you've said, and I've seen it all go in there in the chat and people asking questions. But we've got Kelsey and we've got Eva, who have been reading the chat, who are looking at the questions, who are finding the themes. And I just want to have a brief conversation with them before we return to you and then go to a break. And so, Eva and Kelsey, where are you?
Hello. Hey, Michael.
Hello, Kelsey. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I said you're in this kind of cage today, are you?
Yes.
The Kelsey cage. Hello, Eva. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
You're really good. Oh, okay. So what have we been noticing in the chat today?
Cool. So I'll start. Yeah, so basically everybody's happy to be here, and already we're seeing emails kind of fly across. People are connecting up, which is great. More and more people talking about, I guess, growing a community of business owners. And I guess there was one question actually from Sado. I have no idea how to pronounce it, sorry. They're talking about how they launched an eco-luxury African wellness company 2 weeks before lockdown. So what advice would the panelists give to a BAME-focused business starting out during this?
Wow, Yvonne, what are you noticing?
I think it's just everyone's complimenting the panelists and just being very inspired. And there are a few questions on how to know who the panelists are and get to know them a little bit more. It is on our Eventbrite page and also on the Ubele website page on the names of the panelists and what companies they're from, etc. And there are a few people that may be asking for contact details of some of the panelists that have spoken.
I'm sure the panelists will be happy to provide those. And if people go to www.ubele.org and click around until you find it, I'm sure that you'll find it. Look, our panelists are putting their contact details in as we speak. If there was one question that you would want to ask the panelists from what you've been reading, what would that question be, Eve? You're only allowed one.
I think it's already been answered a little bit. Just how to pivot from what's going on in our environment at the moment, business-wise, which I believe was mentioned in terms of like taking opportunities and also just noticing that online is a space where you can go further than you normally would face-to-face. And also just, it's been inspiring to hear about all the panelists. So if they have more to say on that.
I guess the first thing to say is that often when you're a business owner, you're very focused on sales. And I feel that now people are in a period of crisis and it's almost an opportunity to go more into a market research mode of asking people questions of what is going on for you and spending more time just finding out from people what their problems are, what their challenges are. You won't be able to solve all of them, but there could be something out of that conversation that just gives you an insight that makes you think, oh, actually, we could apply what we've already got to this audience that we perhaps hadn't thought about. But that's going to come from you not thinking about how do I sell my product, but thinking about how do I learn what the challenges are that my potential audience is facing. That's the key piece of advice that I would give.
Also, as well too, I think about seeing what's out there you can help clients and employees with, because I want to throw a challenge out. How many businesses out there have got staff who are working from home? And how many of those people working from home, okay, how many of them have made use of tax incentives to help the employees whilst working from home? And that's one thing we can do. Find out where the pain is and trying to find little solutions, incremental solutions to help your clients and also help their team as well too. Yeah, rather than worries me, think about, rather than selling, as Matt says now, think about helping, the helping hand through. How can I help you through this pain? Because we're all in it together. Yeah, and that's so important. And just look for little nuggets that you can actually share across different sectors as well too, which can benefit the greater good.
And so in our kind of closing 4 minutes of this panel, and it's been kind of just really exciting, and yeah, to just listen to you, to just listen to what it is to be an entrepreneur, to listen to what it is to have an idea, to make an idea work, to dance in the face of all kinds of madness to make your idea a successful one. And as I've been listening, I've been thinking, hang on, Ubele needs one of those. We've got all these courses to deliver across Europe that we're not going to be able to deliver across Europe anymore. We need one of those. you know, I've been kind of just, and maybe one of the things that we don't do as kind of black BAME businesses is to kind of search for those connections, so we could be using each other to do what needs to be done. We're always complaining, aren't we? This one don't exist, that one don't exist, that doesn't exist. But actually, you know, one of the things that you have taught me today is that you people, just the people in this room, in this virtual room today, can solve so many problems that we're having as an organisation. So thank you very much for that. But just very quickly before we go, just anything that each of you can have, I don't know, 30 seconds or so to just kind of something that you think is really important to say to our audience before we leave you and go on to our second panel.
Yeah, just for me,
sorry.
One thing I would like to say is just that I would encourage people to try businesses. Like, if you have an idea, if you have a skill, if you have a passion, if you have something that you want to create, I encourage people to go for it, because the SME community in the UK is so important to the economy. And actually, out of the SMEs, like the Black-led SMEs are only about 5.5%. Of like the total SMEs in this country. And actually, you know, you probably have to separate Black and BAME within that, because the Asian group are much further ahead in business than are the Black, African, and Caribbean. So, you know, it's really important for us to work together, build that trust, start businesses, because we're the ones most likely to employ each other. And you know, talking about the pain of the businesses, there's a lot of people who are being made redundant right now, who are on universal credit, and you know, that's really tough, you know, and they're, you know, it's going to be difficult for some people to cross back into employment if there are not people out there creating jobs for those people to come into.
Thank you very much, Philip. Matt, is there anything you want to say as we end?
I think a key thing is, also speaking to other people. So I can see in the next panel, we've got Sona Mahtani and Lord Victor Adebowale, who I've spoken with, who've given me advice about what I'm doing, even though they're in a completely different space to me. So I think be willing to learn, be vulnerable about what your weaknesses are, really see this as an opportunity to almost reset in terms of what are the new opportunities, how else can I help? Because that will then give you relationships, and it will give you ideas that you can then capitalize on either now or in the next wave.
Okay, sorry, I think, and David,
I just wanted Michael, before we go, I just wanted to say to everyone that I spoke a lot about community and the power of building a community in this time. And I just wanted to leave you guys with the last thing being that know how to communicate to your community. That's so important in this time. So don't ignore platforms like WhatsApp. I grew Enrich Learning with WhatsApp. You don't always have to spend lots of money using maybe Facebook or Instagram or other promotions. You can start small and build big. There is power in kind of small steps. I believe in slow and steady, and you will end up winning whatever your race is. So know your build your community, learn how to communicate with them, and communicate effectively, and you should do really well.
Thank you all so much. It's been an amazing conversation. I've learned so much. I'm glad I've got a recording, because I've been unable to scribble whilst I've been listening, but I'm going to be kind of listening and learning the lessons that you have taught during this conversation. And I think that I'm going to go home with a sense that it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. We are in really, really, really difficult times. We are living in the belly of a madness that we could never have anticipated. But that if we work together, if we see each other's skills, if we see opportunities, if we prepare for the next opportunity that's going to come along, that we can succeed. So thank you very, very, very much We are going to go to a break now. Immediately after our break, we're going to be speaking with Lord Victor Adebowale, who's going to be talking to us about some of the work that he's been doing. We're also going to go back to Kelsey and to Eve, who are going to continue to look at the chat, which seems to have gone a bit crazy now, so there'll be a lot for them to bring back to us, and we'll see our other panelists. I really, really, really want to kind of start an applause that everybody kind of joins in, but I know you can't hear it, but thank you very much to the first panel. And I know that Shalom now is going to put up the first panel end, break, window with 5 minutes before we come back. So thank you very, very much. I'll see you in 5 minutes' time.
Guys, that was amazing. It was amazing. Thank you. I think we're in the
Hello and welcome back to the Ubele emergency webinar on coronavirus and the BAME community. I understand you heard something of what I said in the break when the timer was on. Please ignore that. Please pretend you didn't hear it. It wasn't meant to happen. So please, it's just between you and I. But we're going to open with Lord Victor Adebowale. And Lord Victor Adebowale, he is the chair of Social Enterprise UK. What on earth is Social Enterprise UK, sir?
Well, it's the body that represents, well, actually about 100,000 social enterprises, but perhaps I should start by telling you what a social enterprise is. Social enterprise is a business. It's a business that has a triple bottom line. So it has to make a profit like any other business. It has to contribute to its community, which can be measured, social value, and it has to have a positive or neutral impact on the environment. And those are measures. It's actually the fastest growing form of business in the country, and probably worldwide as well, actually. So it's a particular kind of business that supports those three aims that are measured. And social enterprise
do we have social enterprises that are making money?
Well, yeah, loads of them. John Lewis, for a start off, the Co-op Group, that's making lots of money. Nationwide, these are all social enterprises. The social enterprise that I've just stepped down from as chief exec makes money, Turning Point. I employed 4,500 people, operated in 300 locations, had a turnover of 130 million quid. Yeah, lots of social enterprises make money, just like any other business form.
Okay, because quite often when when people think about social enterprises, they're thinking about kind of coffee shops in the community centre.
Nope, there are social enterprises in every sector. There are social enterprises making clothes, soap, doing finance, management consultancy. The point, yeah, I mean, there's a social enterprise for everybody and everything. Clothes, bags, you name it, there's a social enterprise doing it, just like there are for any other business. But actually, the fact of the matter is, Michael, that social enterprises, one of the reasons I'm involved actually, is that you're more likely to be the owner of a business or to be the chief exec of a business if it's a social enterprise, if you're black. So 13% of social enterprises are BME led, 35% of BME directors, which is not the same, nowhere near the same number in other kinds of businesses. And they are much more representative of the population. Social enterprises operate in most of our poor areas. So there are more social enterprises in poor areas than there are other forms of business. We reckon
Why is
that?
There are about... Why is that? Why is that?
Well, there's lots of theories, and we've been doing some work on this, but a lot of it is about, you know, in poor areas, sometimes there's no choice. You know, you either look up or you look out. If you look up, there's nobody there, right? The government ain't there. So you look out, and people form businesses that help their local communities. We reckon there are about 13,000 black-led social enterprises, if our stats are right, and about 42% of BME, I don't like the term, but I'm going to use it, led social enterprises are under 3 years old. So there's a lot of vibrancy in this sector. Young people tend to form social enterprises, and that's because they know who the man is, if you get my drift, and they want to not just make money, but actually contribute to their communities. It's possible to do both.
And so you have social... Go on, sorry.
Go on. No, I mean, this is why during the COVID period, social enterprises are important. What concerns me is that in a lot of situations, a lot of towns, social enterprises are often the anchor institutions. So housing associations, for instance, a lot of those are social enterprises and our members, universities. And under the current government regime, they've put in place all kinds of support for business as usual, but they haven't put enough support in to support social enterprises during the crisis. And of course, the problem with that is that because there's a disproportionate number of those social enterprises run by black people, there's a disproportionate effect, not only on those black people, but in the communities that they live, which is why we've been lobbying the Rishi Sunak to do something about that fact, because it's not good enough. We already know that that black people suffer disproportionately in health terms because of the coronavirus. Well, I'm about to tell you that we suffer disproportionately in economic terms. The two are related, obviously.
And so it is a fact, then, you say, that there are more black people involved as directors, as business owners in social enterprises than there are in any other sector, that it's a growing sector, that it's working it's working a lot in the kind of less economically advantaged areas of the country. And at the same time, in terms of the support, particularly under COVID, that's come about, it is those companies that are least likely to be getting government support.
Well, yes, I mean, just to give you an extent to the social enterprise, just to sort of draw a line under the social enterprise, what is it and does it do to the economy? Let me give you a simple fact that social enterprises contribute about 60 billion to the UK economy and employ 2 million people. So we're not talking, they contribute more to the economy than agriculture. So this isn't small fry, this is big business. And they do employ more black people. So therefore, if you don't support them in the same way as you support other businesses, they have a disproportionate effect on black people who tend to live in poorer communities. That's a well-known fact. So it is of concern to me, and that's why we're lobbying the government to do more to support social enterprises, because we reckon that 50% of them may run out of cash by the end of June. So we've got to make that right, and that'll put, we reckon, nearly 1 million jobs on the line. A lot of those jobs will be in poor areas and may well be BME people. So
before the end of June, you say?
This is no joke. Yeah. According to our surveys, that's what we think. Yeah. So this is no joke. This is a serious matter. So we reckon about 70% of social enterprises are not getting access to the grant funding that's available. Only 50% are able to access the furlough scheme, partly because of the way the furlough scheme is structured. If you're not paying rates in an office, i.e. you're in a shared space, you're not eligible. So it's not getting through to the front line. And a lot of these social enterprises are on the front line of the coronavirus challenge and of the economic challenge. So that is a problem. We've had some, the eligibility criteria is too strict, and the commercial loans are expensive. And although furloughing has been used by some social enterprises, about half are not able to use it because they need to keep the staff on due to the services that they provide. So some social enterprises employ people with learning disabilities, employ people with mental health challenges. You can't just furlough those people. Part of their therapy, part of their response is working. But they're not, they're ineligible to receive public money and to deliver public services in a lot of cases. So it's a serious matter. I'm sure we'll get through it, but it is a challenge, and it had been wrong of me not to start with saying that. So I don't know who's listening, but you need to know.
Thank you very much. So, Sona, you run one of these social enterprises. Tell us about what you do and how coronavirus and the current lockdown has affected you and the business that you run.
Well, a year ago, I was running a large £1 million social enterprise, the Selby Trust. I've transitioned into a new role as a freelancer now, and I'm working with a lot of small grassroots, Black-led organisations in Bristol, under the leadership of Black Southwest Network. We're a very active community of underinvested Black organisations, have maintained a very strong set of relationships with each other, and have explored by doing research and following up with the capacity building programme. They want to turn that corner. They they realise, they've appraised their own conditions, and they realise where things haven't happened when they've relied on institutions, and now they want to take charge of their own destinies and are proactively seeking the support to make those steps. So these are organisations that support people in the community through care provision, through support with drugs, homelessness, who visit prisoners that nobody else visits, that are radio stations, people who organise local carnivals and so on. I don't actually want to
When you opened up, when you started talking about these organisations, you said they were underinvested. What does that mean?
That means that they haven't had access to appropriate levels of support, guidance, things that other organisations take for granted. Organisations who might not have had a strategic away day or known that that was a good thing to go and get. And those strategic planning opportunities, because they have been, as you mentioned earlier, hand to mouth. They, you know, in some circumstances, a lot of Black organisations who might even have a centre might have acquired that on a kind of set up to fail basis with a very short lease and not in a position to really capitalise on having that asset and being able to maximise it. So what we want to do is actually turn that conversation around to look at what are the assets within our communities that we can make use of, that do tap into our knowledge base, our culture, our arts, our heritage, our learning, and to kind of push back on the negative labelling of Black-led organisations that, you know, in an online world may lead to perceptions of organisations that are not really based on current reality, but, you know, is a notion of somewhere in the 80s we used to be like this. But the whole history of organisations is not well documented, and there's a lot of learning that needs to happen to even impact on our own mindsets to change those perceptions. My experience at the Selby Trust certainly was in line with that position. And it's only when we start to take charge of our own story and articulate it, even if it has involved struggle, and to be bold enough to do that and say, but here we are now, and we're very much in the present and are in a position to look into the future. So when we're talking about investment, it's not just financial investment. It is, you know, kind of whole body and mind experience, because it takes a lot of dedication, as Yvonne mentioned in her introduction. This is not about 9 to 5. Also it is about taking risks to invest and perceiving and checking what is coming up in the future, as many of the panelists earlier mentioned. This is about mapping out how we want the world to be rather than being on the butt end of how it has been.
So kind of just being proactive in not just in your business, but being proactive in making your future the future that you want it to be, about kind of having visions and working towards it. Just on that point, actually, we've got 2 people online who I know are right at the beginning of that journey of making a social enterprise work. They're from an organisation called Black Rootz, based over in Wad Green. Paulette and Sandy, are you here? No, they're not here. Yes, they are. They are here. Paulette Henry and Sandy.
We're here.
Oh, we are there. Hello. How are you doing? Are you both on? Oh,
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. And so you're on different cameras in the same room?
We definitely are.
And that means...
We're trying to swash in.
Okay, that means, well, why don't you actually just, because it's going to, what we're going to do is we're going to end up with a lot of feedback, and I'm going to hear you in the wrong camera. Why don't you just close one of the computers and both of you be in one? Yeah, there you are, you see?
Where is it?
So tell us about Black Rootz. What's Black Rootz?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, please.
So Black Rootz is a growers collective of, and we came together, like you said, we're fairly new. So it's a collective that teaches people how to grow foods. Sorry. Oh.
Yeah, just close the other computer.
We've done it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we teach people how to grow food. So that's horticultural knowledge. And sorry, there we go. And we deliver workshops, health and wellbeing workshops and services to the community in and around North London or in and around London, full stop. And this is, you know, like I said, for workshops, through training, through events, one-to-one support, advice sessions, all catered around growing foods and health and well-being.
So what food, Paulette, are you growing? What foods are you growing?
Oh, we pretty much got quite a bit actually. We have, so we grow culturally appropriate food to Africa and the West Indies, or the Caribbean, should I say. So we grow chocho, we grow yakon, we grow kadu, we grow kalulu, and we also grow just your normal crops, which are, you know, your courgettes, your spinaches, your different types of kales, your different types of brassicas, cabbages, what else? Onion, leeks, pretty much everything we grow.
I think we're also being approached by a number of people within the community because we do specialize in looking at crops that people don't necessarily think can grow in this country. We are being approached by people to grow specific things. I think the best thing about being part of this collective is that we can, I suppose we have the knowledge that will allow us to cultivate specific crops.
Okay, before I just kind of, there's two questions that I want to ask you. One is, I've heard you talking about kind of doing workshops in schools and doing education and doing all of these sorts of things. When Lord Victor Adebowale was talking, he was saying that, you know, one of the things about social enterprises is that they're making money. Tell me, how do you turn this into money?
That's a good question. Good question. Initially, I mean, we were lucky to be kind of like incubated by Ubele Initiative. So they helped us in terms of our development to get like grants in order to develop the business or the structure of Black Rootz. We have, I suppose, in the past, we've developed relationships by delivering through some of the grant aid that we've got to schools. But what that has done in part is that it's introduced our skills and knowledge to those schools. And now we have a number of schools and pupil referral units and other people that are willing to pay us to deliver services for them. Yeah. Right. And I think people have been talking about COVID. The impact that had on us was that our site that we're based was kind of like shut down because, you know, everybody's got concerned about COVID and nobody was allowed to come onto the site to buy our crops. But we've recently been able to kind of like just last week been able to start selling to the public from kind of like the front gate, using all the protocols that are in place to.
Oh yeah, it's a food shop. You should be able to.
Yeah.
So there's been a high demand for food growing at the moment using organic methods. So we've had a lot of trouble trying to get the normal resources that you would, everyday resources, i.e. soil, seeds, you know, even the window of the window to buy seeds is very minimal, you know. The organizations, the online organizations are now giving you maybe an hour or 15 minutes windows. I mean, you know, so it's so important that you save your own seeds. And that's what we also letting people know. And like what Paulette, we through this period, a door of opportunities has opened, in a sense of people are really, really conscious about what they eat because they want to build up their immune system. So those that you would think that, you know, would never go out grow food, actually everyone is coming for advice, everyone is phoning, everyone is coming, you know, asking for soil, asking for seeds. They want to join, they want to grow, they want to learn. So we are really supporting the community, our local community, in doing that. And so much so, when we are working in the center, you know, we get people coming to the gate all the time, constantly, you know, 50, 100 people a day coming to the gate and just asking, just constantly, you know, are you open? Can we buy plants? What foods do you have? We have a garden. Can you come into our garden? Can you teach us how to grow food? I guess on the other hand, the lack of volunteers to make this happen has minimized a lot. So we have to really take this protocol serious, and there's only a limited amount of volunteers that we welcome to the site. So there's a lot of work to be done. We are now in the growing season, so literally there's only a few of us that are really going through it, and you know, it looks awesome. We've also introduced online courses. So for people who are interested or we are in the process of introducing, should I say, we've done one online course which was super successful.
And so you really need to link up with the woman in our first panel who's kind of developing online courses for people all over the world.
Definitely.
Before I go on to speak to Simone Harvey from the Unmistakables, and they've been doing some really interesting work around mental health. I just want to ask you one question, if that's okay. I've got a garden, and I want to grow one thing this year. If I was going to grow one thing this year, what would you say it should be?
I'd say kale.
And I'm thinking in terms of Caribbean food.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Well, there are a number of different types of kales that will come back every year. That's one thing. But I would think in terms of in terms of like what you're looking at, maybe, I mean, things like chocha is a very good thing to grow because you get quite a lot of yield from one plant, and you can do masses with it. You can also eat the leaves, so that might be your best bet. Unless you want to grow something like kalaloo.
Kalaloo is just the easiest one.
Because I mean, when kalaloo goes to seed, that means you'll have kalaloo every single year.
I mean, you have kalaloo to share with the whole of the community.
And in fact, I did grow some kalaloo last year, and it went to seed. Does that mean it's just going to come up again?
That means that means you may have them coming up by themselves this year. Yeah.
Also,
and I grew sweet potato at your advice last year as well, and that was.
And if you kept some of the kept a few of the tubers,
but we're going to have that conversation another time.
Yeah, you can regrow.
I can have my online class another time, because right now I'm going to talk to Simone Harvey. Hello, Simone.
Hi, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good. I'm really glad to be going after Black Roots, because I've definitely got into a little bit of gardening during this lockdown, and I did not have a green finger before. So I'm going to connect with you guys after.
There's a lot of people. I've seen people on my road who are growing and doing their front of their house. They're just kind of bored. They're looking for the next thing to do. And so, yeah, there's an opportunity there. But anyway, tell me about your auntie.
Yes, so just a bit of background. So my name is Simone, and I'm a director at a company called the Unmistakables. So we're a diversity and communications consultancy. And we were awarded BAME Business of the Year last year at the British Business Awards. And roughly what we do is we aim to create opportunity from diversity. And we really believe that diversity should be everybody's business. So internally, what that looks like is we help organizations to become more inclusive and more diverse. And externally, we help them to reach different audiences and also make sure that their comms are reflective of society. So given the nature of our business, COVID happened. And like a lot of business, we thought, okay, a lot's changing. It's changing all the time. Some client bits, shifted a little bit. And we started to think about what we do and how we can do something in this time that would be impactful. And so that's where we landed on what you just referred to as my auntie. So I'll explain. We're working on a project called Project Auntie, and it's basically going to be an online platform to signpost nuanced mental health support for BAME communities. And Auntie stands for Advice, Understanding and Nuanced Therapies in Emergencies. So just taking a step back from that, because as you can see, we don't work directly in mental health, but because we are firmly rooted in the BAME community, we are a BAME-led organisation, and we do a lot in that space. We wanted to do something that would help these communities. And equally, we felt quite disempowered initially, thinking, well, we know that BAME communities are being disproportionately affected, but we don't have PPE, which is one of the things that people on the front line need. So what can we do instead to help at this time, given we can't do that thing? And what we landed on was mental health. And we know that as a community, there are a lot of stigmas attached to accessing mental health services. And at the same time, we know that we are disproportionately affected, be that financially, be that through bereavement, be that through just the general anxieties that come with living in a pandemic. So we thought, we know there are services out there. We equally know there are some services out there that perhaps aren't nuanced enough. There are different concerns for different groups. Even within BAME, it's a huge group. I don't love the term, but it scoops up a lot of people. So how can we pull together those resources into one place where people can really easily access that? So where we're at the moment is we are waiting to hear back on funding, which is a crucial part. From our perspective, we're working pro bono, and we would develop the communications campaign around it to drive awareness, but the web development itself is really crucial. And we've had really great feedback from volunteers. So we've been working with UX designers to think about how, when somebody lands on this site, how they really easily navigate it and also feel like they want to keep going on the journey, because as I touched on, there are a lot of stigmas, and it's not the sort of thing that we all engage with easily, and yet it's so, so crucial. So we're at this stage where we've started a lot of that work, we've got a landing page, and we're ready to kind of push go as soon as that funding is in place. And we're working alongside a new collective called BAME Stream, who are a group of practitioners, therapists, policy specialists and academics who specialise in mental health and therapy. So I guess what I'd also add is just the power of a collective and pooling our resources and coming together and sharing that expertise to help each other from a business perspective. But you can see with something as powerful as this, how we can really affect change.
Something I kind of really noticed, because I'm a trained therapist myself, and something I really noticed during the Grenfell emergency was the number of unqualified people that turned up to say we can work with this community. And I remember running 2 workshops myself where people came and were offering things to people who were really in a very bad way, who were not qualified to be offering what they were offering, and potentially could have done a lot of damage. What kind of what importance are you giving to kind of qualification, so we're not just kind of focused and nuanced, but actually that people have the skills that they've got to have to deliver the service?
Of course, I think it goes without saying that safeguarding is crucial, and people need to be members of the relevant bodies. So it isn't just about scooping up a bunch of people who want to help, as lovely as that can be. It's about pulling together those therapists and practitioners who are qualified and are particularly qualified to help this group because of their own background. So that's the focus.
Thanks very much. And it's going online when
we can get the funding. So initially we put in a bid for Innovate UK, which was a government fund specifically around COVID. And we have interest from one of our clients, which we're waiting to hear back from, and also another agency who work in the social purpose space. But obviously to anyone listening who has a spare 20K or so to throw at the development, I'm just going to shamelessly call out for it now because it's a great cause.
Yeah. 20K. Listen, and while you're waiting for someone to write a check for 20K and to put it in the chat, I'm just going to go and have a brief conversation with Mr. Smith. Hello, Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
And you're from Future Think.
Yeah, so I guess I'm hearing 2 bits. Future Think is a social enterprise actually set up by my wife, which kind of works with marginalized communities around equipping for jobs and skills in the digital age, working with both parents and kids. And so there's been that dimension in which we come in. And since COVID is happening, just the conversations there, not just around how parents and are looking at how they kind of equip their kids through the education system during this period, but also working with kind of communities of small businesses, in particular, small female-led businesses, say in beauty products, hair care, just about facilitating, you know, how do they move to the next stage? So there's advising on future think, and I guess there's also the other side of me in my day job where I do risk management at a bank. And maybe if I could share a few perspectives, because I think where we are now and where we'll be going next is going to be a quite different world. You know, people are talking about whether it's a U, a V, or a Nike swoosh in terms of how the economy moves, with the V being the best outcome, the Nike swoosh being the worst. But whenever we come out of physical lockdown, there's also coming out of economic lockdown, and that's going to, and that world is going to be very different. And even with some of the earlier panels talking about some of the things that we're going to be needing to look at, some of the scarring from an employment perspective, the fact that it's going to be a much more digital world in all of our project offerings, and how do we pivot to that, a more e-commerce world, actually a world where data is going to be so profoundly important for everything. You know, one of the key things that we're doing is how do we look to equip ourselves for that, and we've been having that discussion in the social enterprise, and we actually kind of looked at it from what we call the 3 R's perspective. There's a lot of research which is giving us insights of what might happen. No one really has a total understanding right now, but people, I mean, McKinsey's did a very good piece last week, which I've put the link on the stuff that I sent through to you, about what may happen to the UK economy and small businesses and vulnerable communities like ourselves. There's a lot of resourcing coming out there, even the kind of UK government skills toolkit, which they put with the kind of, you know, to help put for people who've gone into furlough, is actually quite a well-curated thing about how we can equip ourselves. And then also the third R, as I said, research, resources, but also reach. Though the power of our community networks of how we share amongst ourselves is profoundly important. But in this period that comes next, we almost have to look at, and we're looking at both individually and corporately, I think, in 3 ways: how we survive, how we revive, and then how we thrive. And I think it's looking ahead to what is coming as we, as I said, not only come out of economic, not only of health lockdown, but economic lockdown, to look at it that way. So that's kind of my quick set of perspectives there.
Thrive. So tell me what thriving looks like.
I think it's actually, and we've heard it already, it's actually rebuilding from where we're starting. I mean, you know, this is hitting us disproportionately, okay? You know, it is hitting us, it's actually hit us disproportionately just on the health and in some cases life perspective, but it's hitting our jobs and our careers. But I think the fact that everything is up for grabs and so much is so much is being transformed, it does allow ourselves in this period now between, you know, I can almost look at it 2 distinct periods. The period to 30th of June, when the first bit of where the kind of the furlough scheme moves to its next phase, and then the end of October, where the kind of, from what we've seen from the government, that comes to an end. To use that period to really think of what those skills are and those capabilities are, and a lot of them going to be around digital, and a lot of them are actually already resident in the community from what we're hearing, and the way in which the digital world interacts with the physical world, to actually allow us to come out the other end strengthened, even though we're starting from a weakened position, you know.
Sado, hello, how are you doing? Are you hearing? You need to take your microphone, switch your microphone on, Sado, so that I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can now. And so we were just talking with Alan Smith. I don't know if you, but Alan was talking about the community thriving after this kind of lockdown, after the COVID situation. I wonder what thriving would look like for the Black Southeast Network. What would it look like if you were thriving?
That's a really tough question right now.
Oh, good.
Because we're in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
I think from Black Southwest Network, as a race equality organization, we've always had a focus on addressing systemic inequality and racial inequality. From COVID crisis, I think right at the beginning, we knew disproportionately anybody that works in race equality, you would have a clear understanding of the disproportionate impact both on health and economically. And it wasn't really surprising to see that unfold, but I think it was frightening to a level where we didn't really expect how it unfolded. So I think there's been a significant impact on the community, both economically and both in terms of health, that will really take an awful long time to get to the place of thriving. And the key issues around poverty, deprivation, we do know we're still early days of doing the research, but the disproportionate impact of death of COVID, it's very much health related, which also have social determinants. And those social determinants are mainly employment, housing, poverty, deprivation. All of those things are really interconnected. So we're seeing that playing out. So going forward, I think we have a recovery phase that we have to go through, but we also have to go through a phase of healing because it's quite traumatic. I think people are going through this naturally. It is traumatic to be Black in this country, just because of the challenges that people go through. So the impact of the crisis, it's quite significant. I don't think we've yet really understood. I think we're still going through that phase of understanding and feeling that we need to come out of to heal and then perhaps to get to that. But I think we're still not there yet. We're just at the place of even beginning to process and to feel that trauma. And that trauma is connected to years and years of racial inequality and racism that the community has felt. And we can see that from businesses that are really weak, community organizations that are really weak, people who are perhaps predominantly in employment that are quite precarious. So all of those things are really, really playing out. And we don't even have an effective government that really understands that. So I think the challenges are really huge before we get to a place of perhaps thriving. So from a race equality perspective, I think the challenge for us is to make sure that race is still on the agenda and systemic racial inequality is really, really understood.
Thank you, Sado, for kind of reminding me there's something not just in what you said, but in the way that you said it that kind of really reminded me of the pain of the situation that we are currently living through, that, you know, that we talk sometimes. I think I was having a conversation with, in fact, Yvonne earlier on, and I was telling her that I was watching a documentary about some funeral directors, and that the funeral directors normally bring in 10 bodies a day, and at the moment they're bringing in 90 bodies a day. And it really did focus me on what was going on right now, you know, that you know, people are creating storage for bodies, you know, because of what's going on. So thank you for kind of bringing back a feeling of what's going on right now. As we move from this, and this isn't just a question for you, I suppose this is a question for anybody on the panel, that as we move from this, we're going to have to hold a balance, it seems, between a lot of conflicting elements. There's going to be the need to heal. There's going to be the need to understand. There's going to be the need to move very quickly into the dance of making ourselves economically viable, that there's going to be this kind of balance that we're going to have to somehow juggle, negotiate, navigate. I wonder if anybody on the panel, Sado or anybody else on the panel, has a sense of what this juggling might look like, particularly in terms of the BAME Black community.
Well, I'm going to have to go, but may I just thank you for inviting me. In response to your question, it seems to me that there are two issues. One is, get through, get ready. The businesses that will survive will be those that are readying themselves for a post-COVID world. That's the first thing. And I've already heard in the brief time I've been listening, there are some really good businesses here. I mean, Simone's business is fantastic, and it's much needed. And I think there are links there that could be made, not just with the Black organisations, or with other mental health organisations who are woefully fading. I think Paulette and Sandra's business, it's fantastic. If you think about the niche supplier of food to organisations in the social enterprise world, I'm sure if you contacted SE UK, they could put you in touch with people who'd be really keen to buy your product. I think about the black farmer, for instance, that's making a very tidy sum from doing what you're doing. I think Sado's work in the economic space is very powerful. And again, I would say that what the future looks like, in order to survive, there's something about forming partnerships. Not everything black has to stay black. Look at the partnerships that are around you. Look at those organisations that are providing to communities but aren't providing to our communities, and look at the partnerships that you can make with them to fill the gap in their provision. And I think the future is going to look as much like post-COVID. It's going to look like those businesses that survive will be forming partnerships with each other and outside their communities to fill gaps. I think the other point I would make is that this government has talked about levelling up, and if it doesn't do something to support black communities in poor communities, it will fail, and it knows that. So there's something about maintaining a steady drumbeat of, hang on a minute, where's our money? Where's the investment that we're making? Where's the investment that you're making in our communities? Which is something that SE UK will do. And the final thing I'd say is, it sounds, I don't want to repeat what's been said, but it's obvious that we're not alone. The people that wish to think they're alone are making a choice. Join business forums, join SE UK. It's free if you're under 100,000. You will find other like-minded people who will support you and who will think like you in order to get your business off the ground or help it thrive. There is a list of many businesses that are successful that started during recessions. WhatsApp, Venmo, Groupon, Instagram, Uber. These are massive corporations, all started under recession. There's no reason why you shouldn't be successful in a recession. The question is whether you are prepared to get through and get ready. And I will leave you on that point. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. Before I go back to the panel and ask other members of the panel to talk about that balance, I just want to hear from Eve and from Kelsey, because I've seen lots of things going up in the chat, and that there might be things in the chat that that people are asking for you to respond to. So Eve and Kelsey, are you here? Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. What are we seeing? What are we seeing, Eve? What are we seeing?
Following on to what Lord Victor said, there are a lot of people asking questions in reference to angel investors' loans and grant opportunities available that they could make use of at this time. And also there's just questions around how we stay connected after all of this, like what happens, how do we stay connected and share our learnings and resources as a collective.
That is a danger, isn't it, that people kind of come together during the emergency, and then all of that connectiveness kind of dissipates and goes away afterwards. And so, yeah, that's really important. Carry on, sorry.
No, that's it. I think if any of the panelists have any learnings they can share about loans and grants available currently, I think that's the key theme in the questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Eve. Well, in fact, we've got Vidya from Power to Change, who's going to be joining us just before we close, and that they have a particular remit about grants and funds that are available to social enterprises, and so we're going to kind of save that. We're going to save that for her. But thank you very much, and thanks for staying connected with the chat and kind of bringing it into, because I know that people keep on throwing things into the chat, and it's nice that it can come into the conversation. So thank you very, very, very much. So the balance, anybody on the panel that
I think one of the biggest things is to realize that balance is a reality, and there'll be a tension in it. And I think one of the important things is to be honest about it, that we can be going through all three of those emotions in the same day. I mean, even if I look at one of the groups that we've worked with, two of them have had deaths, immediate deaths, where the person had to do their 9 nights via video. Another one has has been furloughed. But on the other hand, you've had discussions with people thinking about, actually, my business is this, let's brainstorm how we can pivot. It was actually a physical training business, that a kind of personal training business, where the person worked out how to go online. So there's a whole, to your point, Sado, we need to realize that tension is real, that sequence that I talked about, survive, revive, thrive, may not be linear. And that also the two streams, there's the health and the wealth are going to be happening in parallel, they're interconnected and they're different worlds. But I think you're right, it's a balance, it's a tension, and I think it's about being honest that it's there, and actually being very sensitive that there's real pain on so many levels that's happening, even as we're moving forward.
And anybody else?
Yeah, I think for Black Rootz, we're looking at I think a number of people within our networks and a number of people that we're supporting right now. I mean, we're looking and we've been talking to people about the importance of nutrition and what they're eating during this time to help, work through some of the grief, because we know that when the body's really grieved, it sucks out some of the nutrients. So we're working with some of our people in our network and people that have come to us for support and advice around that.
Sorry.
We're also developing partnerships with people that are interested in some of the things that we're growing. They're also requesting training and so on as well. And there are lots of people who now can like do one with that, after, people keep on saying, when this is all over, those people will become, hopefully parts of our volunteer base. We also look at supporting those people as part of our community responsibility, supporting those people within their allotments, within their own gardens, and looking at how we can build on the amount of food that London is going to need when we're finished.
And Sado, sorry, I can see you're trying to get in. Are you trying to get in still, Sado?
Yes.
We've got about 8 minutes left, so I'm kind of rushing people through now.
And I think it is happening because it is a balance, all of those things. If you listened to the panel before, it was really, really inspiring to see those businesses doing really well. So you have that part, and you have another part that's happening. So I think all of those things are happening. I think being connected and being supportive within each other, it's quite core. And then key is just make sure that we're holding people to account, we're supporting where we're supporting, and we're reminding ourselves of what this crisis means. But I think all of those things are happening, and it's just balancing them as we move on.
Sona and Simone, anything that you want to kind of end with?
I'd say there's 4 areas of work, and the tough gig is that they all are happening in parallel. And so the first is finding a way to recoup the income that people have lost. Yes. And that might be through grants. And I think with Vidya, you'll find out about ways to actually get a grant to help you with your cash flow. And you know, you can look to lottery and awards for all and all those ones that you might have heard of before, but they too are tackling cash flow, as well as having a component about service delivery. So that's a thing. The second area is simultaneously being conscious of the future and that this moment of emergency is going to move on. It doesn't feel like that for us in our communities, that's for sure, because the arc of bereavement and living with the gaps and the losses and the trauma of it is going to go on for a long time. But in terms of Britain, its funding streams, the business environment, we can see that the push for lifting lockdown is very hard. Now, I live in a country where lockdown has been lifted in some areas. And we can see how that's impacting on relationships. And so people go to hang around with each other, but they're sitting there with masks and trying to drink coffee and have a laugh and chill out. But it's difficult. You know, it's going to affect how we are with each other. So we need to think about that in terms of delivery and how we're going to deal with it. Some of our models do connect to online very strongly, and that can really work. When practitioners want to teach other people how to do X or Y, but there's ones where it doesn't work. But I did hear, for example, of somebody who does African drumming as a practitioner to pick up on the, you know, work of artists, and he's taking that to an online forum to push himself to get into new skills and so on. The third area is adapting what we're doing now for the future. And if you are a training provider or a community center, you know, this is very, very challenging because everything that you were taught that was really good and positive and sustainable is now turning on its head. And we're in a globally competitive environment now. So we are really going to have to push ourselves to innovate.
And I'm going to allow you a very quick number 4. Because we've got to get on to video. We've only got 5 minutes left.
And the four is about attracting investment. And I see in terms of funding being amongst the queries, is there's a level of competence around that we can develop, whether it's collaborating with each other through doing online courses, whatever. Yvonne and all the crew at Ubele can influence what that is through their support. But we can conquer that. We have to have the confidence that we can conquer that and actually attract that investment. And now is a key time to influence those funding priorities. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, just very quickly, that change is the new normal. Something we picked up on very quickly is that we needed to pivot, but then we needed to pivot again and again. And you know, it helps you get a laser sharp focus, but that doesn't stay relevant for everyone all the time. So I think there's something about staying focused on what's here now, but knowing that's going to change, and also using our collective resources and networking. You'll be surprised who knows something that you need to know and skills that we can share amongst us, both within our direct community and more broadly. So there's a need for inclusivity as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, the panel. I'd like to introduce now Vidya. Hello, Vidya.
Hi, Michael. Evening.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
And so you're the Chief Executive of Power to Change.
That's right, yeah.
Power to change what? Power to change what? Tell me what you...
So Power to Change is and we are set up to support community-led businesses. So to complete your sentence, the power to change the lives of people in your community together with those people. So we support organizations where local people come together to address a problem or to find a new solution to something, and we support them to go on that journey, build that business, I think one of the things that's been most challenging for COVID has been the fact that for a long time now, for decades, we've been telling community organisations they need to trade more. That's the route to being more sustainable. Create a trading model. And we've been part of that story. And obviously, then COVID happens. Many of those ways in which the organisations trade are, impacted by social distancing and lockdown. So the cafes, the renting out rooms, a lot of the things that community centres were doing to generate income have all been affected. So, so I think we're in a funny turning point in that actually, if you were fully dependent on grant funding, you've probably been more resilient through the last couple of months than if you were dependent on trading, because the trading income has been so affected. But what we have seen at Power to Change, and what's been described as I've been listening to the panel, is that community businesses and other community organisations have been at the forefront of responding to the crisis and supporting local people. So they've been at the forefront of the food, addressing emergency food need, of kind of supporting people to not be socially isolated, of doing shopping, meeting medical needs. I mean, the whole range of needs, and much quicker, more agile, more responsive. The pivots that Simone just mentioned have been much quicker than any central state kind of led response. It's been at the front line of community organisations where needs have really been met first and foremost. So we sort of trying to align those two things sort of was really the reason why we put together an emergency support package. So as other funders have done, but I think, we really saw, just to give you a sense of the scale of what we've wanted to do. So I think on average, foundations are sort of challenged to put 1 to 3% of their endowment towards emergency funding. That's sort of if you go to the Association of Charitable Foundations, that's kind of the guideline. That's what you should be doing. We've put 20% of our current assets into emergency funding. And we're an organisation that was set up on a time limited basis. So we're due to close at the end of 2022, whether we do or not, depends on whether we secure new funding. But at the moment, our money runs out in 2022. And we decided that it was more important to support community business than to continue our life. So we are sort of sacrificing some of our longevity to be able to support communities at this point, because our feeling was, if we were set up to do this, what would be the point of sustaining ourselves at the expense of the organisations we were set up to support? So, the demand for the support. So the support that we're able to offer at the moment is emergency support to make up for lost trading income. So it's specifically targeting many organisations that have been focused on trading, have lost a lot of that trading income. So organisations that can demonstrate that they're going to lose trading income, the support. But the demand has been overwhelming. We opened the first window for support last Tuesday. It closed within 46 seconds. We hit the ceiling on how many applications we could take in that time frame. So I know that there'll be loads of people on this call who are desperate for funding. And, despite the fact that we've really tried to stretch ourselves, we aren't going to be able to meet all the need. We are fighting hard to try and get more funds that we can distribute. And I mean, one of the things that I think for us as an organisation has been most positive in a negative context, if you like, is that we're now partnering with Ubele, as you know, Michael, to try and push for more funds. We really want to make sure that we do as much as we possibly can as a funder to make sure that the funds that we are able to get hold of can go to BAME communities. And we feel like to make that really work, we need a proper partnership with an organisation that's really rooted in those communities and understands them better than we do ourselves. So we're hoping that if we can secure new funding in the next month to add to the emergency funding that we've already been able to distribute, and we can do that in partnership with Ubele, then that's that's furthering the support that we can offer to communities and community businesses. But I know it's really tough out there, and but the stuff that we are seeing organisations do is incredible, and the pivots and the responsiveness is amazing.
And so if I kind of follow the conversation that's happened up until now, one of the things that businesses are quite clearly saying is one of the things that you're responding to is just how do we make up for our loss in the past 3 months? If businesses want to come to you, how do they do that? How do they get support to do that? What other funds might be out there? How would people direct themselves to that? Where's the first port of call?
so most of us have got as comprehensive as we can get sort of lists on our websites of sources of funding. So if you go to our website, powertochange.org.uk, and you're a community rooted trading business, we've got a lot of resources there that point you in the direction of not just our funding, but other funding that's available. You go to Social Enterprise UK, you'll find other lists for social enterprises. So there are quite good kind of lists out there of funding. I think we're still waiting on the government funding to be announced. So there was 360 million committed for small charities that is going to be distributed through the lottery. So we're waiting on an announcement of how that's going to be distributed, who's going to be distributing it, what the what the conditions are. But that will be obviously another big pot of funding that will be available to both address the fact that organisations have lost income, but also that they're meeting extra need, because it's that sort of double whammy of you're losing some of the money that you had.
You're having to grow in order to support.
You're stepping up to do new services and meet greater needs. So, but I also think, I mean, the other side of this is that we're also trying to push hard with lots of other organisations to make sure that the fact that community organisations have stepped up and have been at the forefront of the response, actually going forward into recovery, leads to a realisation of the importance of these organisations within government. That actually we're not going hand to mouth for generations to come, that there is a sort of final realization that for a country to thrive and succeed requires as much social infrastructure as it does physical infrastructure. We need to, we somehow need to land this point collectively with government that, underfunding community infrastructure, social infrastructure perpetually actually degrades us as a country. We need strong community organizations across all, representing all communities in order for us to be inclusive and to grow and to thrive. So I think there's a moment in the crisis, I think provides us with an important moment to try and land some of that in a more powerful way than we've been able to, because I think the community sector has demonstrated that it's not a nice to have, it's a matter of life and death. It's been the part of the economy that has really reached out and made sure that needs have been met.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much, Udeh. Thank you very, very much, all of the panelists. I'm really, really sorry that I kept you here 6 minutes over time, but it has been really exciting to listen to you, to listen to what's going on in our communities, to listen to these entrepreneurs and people just kind of doing amazing things in the most crazy circumstances. Thank you to everybody behind the scenes. Thanks to Eve and Kelsey. Thanks for doing all of the reading. There will be some publishing of some report on this conversation on the Ubele website. People will be able to watch the conversation again if they want to. People will also be able to get some more information about kind of what came through the chats. And so thank you very, very much from myself. Thank you very much from Yvonne. Thank you very much from Ubele. Thank you very much from the team. And we'll see you at our next conversation. Good night.